All right, 6 o'clock, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, item number 2, adoption of the agenda. We do have one addition. Will be a quick exempt session under 7.03 under RCW 42-30140, section 4. Are there any other amendments to the agenda?
I just want to clarify, are we moving that 7.03 to an exempt session and removing it from the agenda? Or will we be possibly coming back out of exempt session and making that determination?
We will possibly come back. There's one point that we can discuss. Beyond that, we would need to schedule an entirely different meeting. So we may be coming back for a vote, or we may come back with no action.
Okay. I move that we approve the agenda with the addition of an exempt session.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 3, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board President Wiehlander, other board directors, community members, and staff. I got just a couple comments. One, it's that time of the year where we do some last-minute hiring. Underneath our strategic plan, we have effective educators and leaders. Hiring is a big part of that, onboarding, and then orientation activities that we have planned. Onboarding as people come on board, but the orientation, a lot of our work does happen in August. Again, I've tried to celebrate many times over the work of our staff, just around the number of hires we have. Right now we have 2 vacated certificated positions for teacher certs. One is for multilingual. At the high school, we've had an increase in our multilingual population at Shelton High School, and so we want to make sure that we have some more certificated staff to help serve our students there. I've seen that firsthand for the 3 years that I've been here, so it's good that we're getting that particular certification and support for our students. And the other one is Open Doors. As I've also commented, Open Doors at Choice, we've had an increase. We've been doing outreach efforts to our students who are not currently enrolled in a school district. And so we've been trying to get some students to come through Open Doors at Choice. Again, that's an opportunity for our students to work to get their graduation requirements in a usually not what some might term as a non-traditional opportunities, different hours to support them in getting the things that they can graduate with. So that's really exciting. So, and then everything else is filled. So it's great. It's just unusual. It's so quiet in that regards. What is not quiet is our maintenance projects. You can see it right here at Mountain View Elementary, right out front. There's always all these little projects that happen all over the district. Some are more transformative. Again, kind of like what's going on in front of the school here in the garden area. But a lot of it is just really like stripping floors and putting a new layer of wax on them, moving furniture, getting things in place so that we're ready for school. Not always the most attractive projects, but I just want to thank most certainly our custodians and our maintenance personnel for all their work during this time period. It's their busy season, and they do a really great job, especially when you start walking into schools right before school. You're just like, wow, everything is just gleams and looks really amazing. And I know our teaching staff really appreciate it when the classrooms are ready for them, and so that they can further decorate them in preparation for our students. So thank you again to our custodians and maintenance staff. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Board President Wiehlander.
Thank you. All right. Item number 4, community comments. As part of our regular school board meeting, the board welcomes community members to make public comments in person and/or by phone as conditions allow. If speaking in person, please follow the public comments procedure by signing in, stating your name and address at the podium when called by the board chair. If making comments by phone, please dial 1-253-215-8782 and enter meeting ID number 854-3386-9913. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items that are not on the agenda. The board will direct the superintendent to follow up with any items that arise during public comment as appropriate. The board requests that all speakers use civil and appropriate comments and refrain from disrupting the business of the board. We ask that you help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. First up would be Lauren Lynn Rogers.
It has come to my attention that the decision on Superintendent Jesse's salary increase includes an extension of his contract. If this is the standard practice, your employee has put you and us as taxpayers in a dependent position and leaves him unaccountable for his actions. The ability to discharge him is nearly impossible because of the extensive legal cost to overcome his contract. He, knowing this, is less likely to feel any concern or accountability that would result in a loss of employment. For that reason, you should not approve the extension of this contract as you approve his wage increase. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items that are not on the agenda. This is on the agenda. So school board members, you have every right to speak this concern at this meeting.
Bob Rogers.
Evening. Thank you, Chair Wiehlander, Vice Chair Davidson, and Becky and Laura. Thank you. Tonight on your agenda is the modification, at least the original agenda is the modification, including extension of the superintendent's contract. This comes after several non-public meetings for his performance evaluation and consideration of contract adjustments. I understand why those specific sessions needed to be an executive session. However, I fail to understand how the board refused to even discuss issues that came up or ramifications or solutions in a public meeting. You are members of an elected public board with primary responsibility to your constituents. You continue to dismally fail at your primary task. You have failed to hold your only employee accountable for his dismal failure in keeping the public informed of significant issues going on within the Shelton School District. To me, this is totally unacceptable. Do your duty tonight. If you must act on the contract, at least have an open public discussion on what your superintendent's performance review determined, what is being done or asked for improvement, what each of you believe the contract should be extended or not. I hope in presenting the contract or in your discussion, you have enough respect for the public to share what the contract provisions are changing. If you cannot do your duty on having an open public discussion on the contract, then why should we trust you on anything? Thank you.
Andrew Wilford.
Hello, Andrew Wilford, 509 Grant Avenue here in Shelton. Thanks for having us. I wanted to talk about our facilities use agreement. It's on the agenda. I know just a meeting or two ago, a gal came up here and talked about using the playground with their child, and I've seen some improvement in that arena. I think that's fantastic, giving our kids an opportunity to play during the summertime outside where it's relatively safe. I would still love to see a little more leniency with those hours. It used to just be open 24/7. It gives us working parents an opportunity to get out there with our kids, and as adults, we like to go play, a game of pickup ball once in a while, and that's been taken away from us for over 15 years now. I don't know if you guys realize that. I was a night custodian at Evergreen when that rule changed, and it's been over 16 years since I worked there. So I don't remember the exact year, but it's been a long time that we've locked this down from the community. And so I got to reading through our facilities use agreement and all the changes that are being proposed, and that got me through to looking at the pool as it's noted in our facilities use application form. It says look at addendum A for our pool use. That was last revised in August of 2009. And in that addendum, nowhere in it does it say that the YMCA is the sole proprietor of the use of our pool in off-hours instances. In fact, it still has a fee schedule, which I remember paying because we were very regular users of the pool. So I looked into what the Y offers for us in the community to use our high school pool, and there's really only two ways we can get in there. One is if we have lessons for our children. Now, both of my kids are old enough, they know how to swim. Not the greatest swimmers, so I don't really need lessons for them, but we like to go play. The only other opportunity for the high school pool is lap swim, which they are definitely not good enough for lap swim. I'm not sure I'm good enough for lap swim either, maybe a lap or two, and I'll be pretty winded. Open swim was the thing. That's where families came on the weekends for a couple hours just to have fun in the pool, cool off. We also used to have birthday parties, and that's no longer afforded to us anymore. Back in 2017, I know that predates most of you, we had a $65 million bond that was passed by the voters, narrowly, but it passed. And in the promises that were given to us in the community was continued access to the pool, because there was over $100,000 dedicated to refurbishment of the pool. And as it sits now, the Y is the only way we can get in there. And I don't understand how we allow a non-governmental agency to profit from our publicly funded pool. Thank you.
Marilyn Aaron?
Good evening. My name is Marilyn Aaron. My address is on file with the district. So I'm here to express concerns shared by parents, community members, students, and staff regarding 7.03, the renewal of the superintendent's contract for a 3-year term. Given the vital role the superintendent plays in shaping the quality of education and overall environment within our district, it is crucial that we maintain the ability to evaluate his performance regularly and make adjustments as needed. Here are a few of the concerns about the current superintendent. There have been multiple concerns regarding his performance and accountability and his ability to effectively fulfill job duties. These concerns range from the execution of strategic initiatives to the overall impact on student performance and district progress. Effective communication is essential for a superintendent. Unfortunately, there have been numerous reports of inadequate communication with parents, students, staff, and the broader community, leading to confusion and mistrust. This failure in communication includes not being transparent about key decisions, not providing timely updates on important issues, and not actively engaging with the community to understand and address their concerns. Such lapses have eroded confidence in the superintendent's leadership and have left many stakeholders feeling uninformed and unheard. While I understand that the decision to renew the superintendent's contract has already been made, I am here to advocate and propose that we transition to an annual contract basis. While I can appreciate the stability a long-term contract offers, I believe a 1-year renewal cycle would better serve our district, and here is why. An annual contract allows the district to remain flexible and responsive to any issues that arise. If the superintendent is not meeting expectations, the district can more affordably and swiftly seek new leadership. While the district already conducts a yearly review process, having the superintendent on an annual contract would make this process more impactful. It would ensure that the superintendent is continuously held to high standards and that any performance issues can be promptly addressed without being bound by a longer-term contract. This alignment would facilitate more immediate corrective actions or leadership changes if necessary, thereby promoting enhanced accountability, continuous improvement, and better outcomes for our students. A shorter contract not only mitigates financial risk, but it also is fiscally responsible. Should the need arise to terminate the contract due to unsatisfactory performance, the district would face fewer financial penalties and burdens. Renewing the superintendent's contract on an annual basis is a wise measure that serves the best interests of our students, staff, and community. It ensures that the district maintains high standards of leadership and accountability, fostering an environment where educational excellence can thrive. We urge you to prioritize the community's concerns and acts in the best interest of our district's future.
Item number 5, overview of the proposed 2024-2025 school budget with Brenda Trogstad and Wyatt Jesse.
Good evening, Board President Welander, other board directors. So this evening, Brenda and I are going to provide you with some information that we've covered in our last work session and some updates to it. So we'll talk about the digital budgeting process. It's gone underneath a lot of improvements over the last 3 years. We've detailed that for the board numerous times, and I thought it would be good to capture some additional information to help you understand about how the district's budgeting process is a multi-year process, actually, and not just about an annual process itself. We need to talk about budgeting the balance, the district's budget balance, which is something we've been working on and trying to build up, and so we'll talk a little about that. And we have some details additionally around comparing our budget balance with other local districts. Enrollment trends and projections. More students we have, the more funding we receive. It's pretty straightforward. And then just around some of the planning for 24, 25, those are the details of the dollars, both on what are the activities that we have planned and then specifically the fund sources that we have available. We do talk a little bit more in detail about how that looks like specifically for schools and departments, and then we'll have time for questions. Great. Okay, so really the way we're set up is to match our specific strategic plan and our policies, which is very operational, right? Like, so how does the district run? What are the things that we're trying to focus on? At the enterprise level, you would think of like, all right, that's exactly what the policies should look like. They should support those things. And then the things that are on the strategic plan and the 4 initiatives that we have. ELA, meaning buying books, making sure we have professional development, safe and welcoming schools, making sure that we have family support workers and additional folks that are experts in behavior, college and career readiness. We've gotten feedback a lot of times from our students who are transitioning a lot from like our non-highs, and then also our incoming freshmen about orientation, like what does that look like? How do I get going? And then our investments into the pathways and the academies. And then effective teachers and leaders. Does look like a lot of professional development, but we do have additional things just about how we orient folks onboarding, getting them going, and then of course our recruitment efforts, which need to be quite extensive. Those things filter down at the strategic level, so what are schools and specific departments budgeting on? And then taking a tactical approach is literally looking at like, okay, now we're in the classroom, how are these funds being implemented? Professional development's always a good one. Professional development is very costly. Is this leading to incomes and outcomes specifically to students? So take the feedback, how is it? And then that informs our future budgeting process over time. And then that's exactly how we've set ourselves up. We're just coming on the end of a 2-year strategic plan. Professional development and buying books have been one of the larger purchases that we've had. At the same time, we have to make adjustments because of some things that roll out, things like ESSER money coming off, and so we have to shift our funds as we've done so. And one of the critical things, and I think the really good thing for the public to know, is about line item budgeting. So now we know exactly where the line item is, where's the funding source, and then what is it connected to as far as our activities, and activities really at that strategic and enterprise level, so that we know, all right, so yes, it's summertime, we have to buy replacement books. How many replacement books are we going to purchase? And it gets really detailed for us to know, all right, we have set aside $4,000 or $5,000 per school, and then we know that we also have specifically Spanish-speaking books. We know that we're going to use some of those monies from our transition bilingual program dollars, so that we have that already set up, so that we're already planned out from this year, ready for next year, and all the activities that go into the summer, right? And then we know that some of our professional development strings along for multiple years. So I think the next slide helps illustrate, yes, we have an enrollment, and we take in that information in January, but we're already collecting information for school budgets and staffing in February, so that we know strategically, at that strategic level, all right, these are the activities that we have coming up. We may be having a lot of things around like behavior, so I'll use an example at Choice. They were having a lot of challenges, and we knew that there was a need for more mental health services. We have to plan that activity back in February in order for us to make sure that they know what is gonna happen in response to the need, right? That feedback loop that comes back, students need the supports. We fill that in February, they plan that out, we have a conversation with the principal, we put their allocations together. Then in March, they go back to their leadership team, so the counselor, the classroom teachers, some of the paraeducators, office personnel, get around the leadership team, and they discuss not only staffing changes, but specifically how are their improvements, the staffing and the materials, going to match their school improvement plans. They submit those at the end of March, we review those get approved by senior leadership, and then we set ourselves up. And then really all the way to the end of the school year, really wrapping up a lot of those activities related to the departments, and just around planning ultimately as the dollars come in from the state and federal programs. Brenda's taken there, and those adjustments are made, and then we may have to go back to the schools or departments and say you either have less money or more money. And that goes all the way into the summer. We continue to have adjustments. I'm sure Brenda will mention that until the start of the school year. And then even after once school starts, we have enrollment changes, and then we're making different changes as necessary, maybe moving some classroom teachers around to fill the need based on any shifts. Okay. So, like it's been the headlines, this one grabbed from at the end of May, not very long ago. Schools across the state are struggling to balance their budgets. These are tight times. It's not anything new for any district. This is not just about ESSER dollars. Materials and people cost more, and so you have to use those dollars. So we've been prioritizing those in the Shelton School District. High quality professional development. We have a 3 to 4 day professional development for all of our certificated teachers in August. That has been surrounding specifically ELA approaches and safe and welcoming environments, how to build relationships, structures and routines, how do you create inclusive environments for students, how do we work with multilingual learners. So those have been the professional development we provided, and then as I've also mentioned, we also need more experts around behavior and mental health. Addressing issues and challenges for challenging behaviors requires true expertise. You want folks that have an ability to understand how to build a behavior support plan, what is it to start to develop particular contracts and goals with students, things like Check and Connect, where you're working every day, coaching in on students, providing mentoring to them, tracking data and making adjustments on your plans to best meet the needs of those students who have more significant needs around their social emotional learning, and of course, behavior management. So in addition to dollars, we want to make sure that we're utilizing the resources that we do have. So we've been working on staffing schedules. So what is it specifically? What does the schedule look like for all of the staff at the school for the entire school day so that we're better coordinated? That is something that has been needed in place. We've been working on that with all of our, back to our building leadership teams, did a 2-day professional development last month in June, got it ready, getting the staffing schedule set up, ready for the next school year so that, again, we can be better coordinated and utilizing staff to know who exactly is going to be the first responders, some of the behaviors. Who are the specific staff that are going to do inclusion into which classroom during the ELA, the reading and writing blocks? Those have been some pieces that have been missing, and those are the pieces that we've been trying to maximize our resources that we do have under that. I've mentioned orientation activities. I think they've gone really well, but they're not cheap. Getting staff and training up on the student leaders, getting them to come, having activities, those are tens of thousands of dollars. Those things do cost money. That's where we decided to enter our time. That was loud and clear when we built the strategic plan, and that's going to continue to come through. And then support for our academy model. Again, things like the freshman academy and making sure the students get at least 2 trimesters of instruction that really does support them about how to navigate not only high school life, but about college and career readiness. So really been putting our time and energy there. It is related to the strategic plan. We, just like other districts, have to balance our budget, and it is leaner times. The dollar doesn't stretch as far. And so that's why we've been prioritizing these activities and these particular resources to maximize what we can do with what we do have. So I'm about to hand it over to Brenda, but I just wanted to highlight, so since I got here, I was handed the 21-22 budget. I knew we had some challenges. So with previous school boards, I've mentioned that we have to build real systems and checks and balances in the district and have line item budgeting. Those are all really important pieces. So we now will highlight, I know Brenda will show some of those moves up here and some upcoming slides about how we budget with schools, how we budget with departments, how we take different funding sources and make those and break those down. And then when we do have the line items, we can also do way better accounting for our costs because we know what we projected the cost to go to, and then when the bill comes, we can match it up a lot more easily and making sure it's aligned to the right funding source, which has been a challenge for us in the past. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brenda.
Okay. Good evening. You've seen this chart numerous times. It's our historical fund balance. As you can see, in 2016-17, we were almost at 10%. And then COVID hit, and costs went up, things changed, lots of variables in there. So that's what happened in 21-22. I'm pleased to say with 23-24, it looks like we're going to end right about $3 million, which is 3.8% fund balance. And then we're projecting with the new budget to be almost at 5.8% or $4.7 million in the fund balance. Here is a comparison with other school districts in our area. What I did, I grabbed their budgets off OSPI's website and did the calculations. As you can see, they were in good shape when we were in good shape previously, but everybody is starting to struggle. They're cutting staff, they're doing the RIF notices. Enrollment is down in a lot of districts. Luckily, we're staying pretty steady and keeping those kids. But the interesting piece in 23-24 is you have a lot of flat ones. Those tall ones are at 6%. They went from way up at like a 15% and they're down to 6%. So if you look at where we were and where we are now, it's almost comparable to those other school districts in our area. So we've been doing a lot of work, as Superintendent Jesse said, to align our budgets to all of our strategic plan, and in the classroom, getting those book libraries out to the students so they have books to read, increasing test scores. We're laying it all out in the budget, and as you saw in the timeline, it's a year-round process for us. We don't just do it right now and bring it to you. We are working on it all year long. Whether it's, projecting the enrollment, watching the enrollment, or it's looking at the current costs and shifting dollars from one grant to another, or, maximizing that type of thing. We did implement a purchasing freeze this year on some discretionary spending. We wanted to get our fund balance up, so our school leaders worked with us, our departments worked with us, and they really looked at what they were spending money on this year in the 23-24, and they have done a great job at that. We also looked at positions that were coming open during the 23-24 school year to start planning for 24-25. If they came open, we looked at each one, we met with the principal or the department, you know, do you really need this position for next year? Could you do without it for 1 year? Could you reduce the number of hours from 8 to 7? Number of days from 190 to 180? We went through that process. It wasn't just us making the decision. We had collaboration with everybody involved on those. And in all of those cases, nobody lost their job. It was people resigning or retiring when we looked at those jobs. So all of our cuts were either temporary positions or people that had left, and we looked at them that way. Enrollment, you can see we were way up there for a little while, and we've come down and went up a little, and we're staying steady. We budgeted at 4,150 FTE for students. That doesn't include our Running Start kids, the Gravity program at ESD, or Open Doors. Those are reported on top of that 4,150. As Superintendent Jesse said, we have that Open Doors program at Choice now, and we're starting to get out and recruit kids back in that have dropped out of school, so that has helped increase enrollment also. And ending 26.79 above what we budgeted, so that generates quite a few dollars on top of your budget, so that gives you some funds to either build your fund balance, or if something, an emergency comes up with maintenance, that gives you some extra money there to deal with that. So here is the projected 24-25 revenue chart. As Superintendent Jesse said, I am in there multiple times a day changing dollars as they come in from the federal government, or, you know, our carryover is changing right now because, you know, of costs and that type of thing. So tomorrow it has to be submitted to the ESD, so I'm going to quit messing with it, but here is where we are right now on it, and it could change just a little bit tomorrow, but it won't be very much, it won't be very noticeable, but I will update and put it on the website and send it out to you. So in here, you'll see we get the majority of our money from the state. That section is a little bigger this year. They passed through a 3.7% cost of living increase. That only comes through for the funded staff. We have to use local levy dollars to subsidize that amount when it comes through, because they don't fund every person that we have. Your federal dollars, when you have staffing in that, you just have to, that increases and you stay within your allocation. When I'm doing budget, I have to balance every one of those programs down to zero. You cannot submit a budget with it over in those. Your other districts are paying non-high, you know, costs that come in here to Shelton, to the high school, and that's based on our levy that we run and pass with our voters. So that's pretty much that. You've seen that chart numerous times. So here is a comparison from 23-24 to 24-25. One of the biggest changes is the ESSER cliff that dropped off. We knew it was coming, so we have been preparing for that. Our federal money went from 12.28% to 8.64%, so that was quite a reduction in that, but we started working on it and planning for it actually in the prior year and in 23-24 to know, you know, to be able to move forward 24-25. One of the big things we did with that is they told us, OSPI recommended do not put staffing in there, and we were very careful on that. We were very minimal on that, so that helped us a lot. It was, you know, buying books and buying portable classrooms and that type of thing. So as you can see, like I stated, the state portion is bigger in that, but that mostly is our cost of living increase. Transportation funding went up because we have bus drivers this year in 23-24, so our ridership is up, so that went up quite a bit. And then we have bilingual dollars also in the state special purpose that our numbers have increased a lot here in the district, so that was a substantial increase in the state also. And here is, right now, carryovers changed just a hair, but I'll update that too. These are all of the ways we get funding, clear through the state, and then our federal grants that we have. So the 24-25 allocations are pretty solid right now. I think I've received almost every one of those in. So they're accurate. Carryover will fluctuate a little as we go into year-end close on August 31st. But you'll see that when I do the financial statements of exactly what happened there. So this is something we track every month. We have a team that meets and goes over state and federal dollars every month in a monthly meeting and looks at our allocation and our costs we're planning, and we're constantly monitoring that. Here's an example of a budget sheet that we put out to the schools. We generate the allocations for their supplies for each school, and then I send it out to them. And they actually allocate their budget out based on their school improvement plan and their needs in their exact building. I give them the bottom line dollar, and they do the allocation. They decide where the money is going to be spent in there. We also use, a furniture allocation. We give some levy dollars so they can update their furniture every year if they have needs for that, or they can use it for copy machine costs also. And then we have some equity dollars that they can actually use for additional staffing. So that's an example of what gets sent out to everyone in the buildings. And here's an example of what we used this year on our staffing allocations. We went through and projected enrollment, and then I used the prototypical school model from the state and see how many teachers get generated for basic education. Most of our schools had to reduce by one teacher this year based on that allocation. We were trying to get it back in line because we had been over the allocation in prior years. So you'll see how we laid it all out by type of teacher, funding model, that type of thing. Classified staff is based on hours down here, and we did have some office professionals in a couple of the buildings, but as you see, it's a minor. It's 1.5 hours a day, and they actually agreed to that and offered that to us, and it was an open position, so nobody was reduced in that. And here you've seen this before. This is our local effort assistance dollars. When you have a levy, you get some state funding. The higher your levy goes, the lower these dollars go. So as you can see, we're a property poor district is what they call us on taxes. So that's why we get this money. But as you can see, this money comes in on a calendar year. So you have to calculate it out based on a calendar year and then plug it into our budget year. And it comes in all different levels. So it's not consistent, just like the state apportionment. You're constantly moving with your dollars all year long. So here are our expenditures for 24-25. Very similar. You see we are at 86.5% on staffing. We are down. We were 88.8 in 23-24. But we're a people business. We have kids. We have bus drivers running our kids. Our food service people are serving lunches and breakfast. So that's our biggest cost. And then, of course, we have our supplies, materials, purchase services, capital purchases, and a little bit of travel. So we're at $81 million right there on that one. And here's how it's broken out. The majority of it goes to instruction and instruction support. And then our food costs are up a little bit this year, or quite a bit actually. And fuel for pupil transportation. Maintenance and operations, we plugged in a little extra there for some additional emergency maintenance as our buildings get older, just in case something happens with HVAC units or that type of thing. And of course, our utilities and insurance are up there too. So, and then we've also plugged in a little bit extra for our technology department to do some upgrades on servers and that type of thing and get some newer computers. So. And here's an example of something that we put into place. Actually, it was Superintendent Jesse's idea, and I love it. My accounts payable person loves it, so it's really helped us a lot. We have a spreadsheet that as the invoices come in, she's entering it into our software that actually generates the text, but we're tracking it on the spreadsheet also, and we put the funding on here so we know exactly what funding is paying for every invoice that hits Shelton School District. And then we've also been doing some trainings this year with the office professionals. We have documentation, protocols, instructions, and we've done multiple trainings with them on specific things they've asked for. Associated Student Body Secretaries came down and we did a 2-hour training with them, and we have a lot of new staff there, and they really like that. This next year, I'm working with Chelsea Brady. We're going to put together multiple trainings that will include the principals and their lead secretary in the room together so that they'll all be on the same page. And then, like I stated earlier, we've continued to do our monthly meetings on state and federal programs, so we know exactly where all those dollars are moving to. So here's a few of our reductions. I just grabbed some of the bigger ones. You know, I could come in here with pages and pages of adjustments that are made in this budget as we move through. You know, we have the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. We're doing without that this year down at district office, so that those job duties got spread out across people. Kate, Athletic Director, our athletic director at the high school, has taken on that whole position. And then we went clear across the district. It was district office had some hits, maintenance and custodian had some hits, technology went down by 1 building support person. Like I said, the secretaries, we did a few reduction in hours or days, but worked with the principals on those. The paratime, those were all temporary positions or people that had left. Nobody lost their job. They all knew they were hired in a 1-year temporary position, or it was somebody that wasn't coming back. We shifted some basic ed funding over to CTE for items that they could pay for, so that helped us out, and we had some grants we moved funding into. Good news, our L&I rate is down. We don't have as many accidents in our employees, so safety is up. That's great. And then we negotiated some new contracts on several items there. And that is all. Do you have any questions?
Go ahead.
If we could go back to the reduction slide. Sorry, I'm talking really loud. I'm curious, the hourly paraeducator time, I'm still not quite clear on this. Is there fewer paraeducators in the classroom this coming year? Because we hire many people on 1-year contracts. So I'm trying to understand if there's fewer paraeducators accessible to the students.
You can take on, I'll start. The ones that we had in as temporary this last year were supervision paras. They're not actually in the classroom. They were playground and that type of thing. But our building principals have worked with, they came and met with HR and I several times and worked through how to redo their schedule. As Superintendent Jesse stated, they're doing exact schedules of where people will be and utilizing all the minutes in the day. So they have been able to fill in those gaps. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think, Wyeth, maybe you could answer the question, though. Are there like fewer paraeducators supporting teachers? I'm not.
So so you have to start with the context, right? So the context is the district, when I got here, and it was previous superintendent said the same thing. We have an inordinate amount of paraeducators. So if you think of the number that we started with was really high and working our way down. One of the things about paraeducators that most districts did, Director Gilmore, is that during ESSER, they used some of those ESSER dollars to provide additional supervision during those particular times because you had to split the groups of students off to be safely, distanced from other students. And so us, like a lot of other places, were doing that. And so now these are costs because, you're right, we do have people that are on annual contracts, but this particular group is not they do not have an annual, what's the term? I'm going to lose my, the temporary paraeducators versus the ones that are represented and run through every year in the annual cycle. So we haven't reduced those folks. We reduced those that have temporary annual contracts.
Okay.
which they know that it comes to end of term. Other people and other paraeducators that are funded for like LAP or title funding or special education, they have a continuing contract year in, year out. We'd have to riff them to get rid of them.
Okay. There was a slide with OBJH, and it shares the total like reductions for that school. And yes, I would like to see this for the district, not just OBJH. And I'm also curious, like our non-filled positions, if we could get a list of what positions we're not refilling in the district and not just, necessarily not rehiring. Because I think that's something that we should be considering and looking at in this package, so. Those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Director Gilmore, that list has most of the, I can go back and look, but I grabbed the positions that we didn't fill on that list of reductions, so that should be all of them, but I can go back and double check that.
Okay, I just want to, make sure that there aren't positions that, people have moved out of and aren't being refilled that the district has, previously expected those positions to be there, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. So again, on the paraeducators, is there a possibility that you get into the school year and decide, oh, maybe I need 5 more or something?
So what we do, it was on the timeline slide, I believe. When we hit school and we get our first enrollment counts in September and October, we go back through and look at their staffing, certificated and classified, to see if there is a need for more there.
And so this, excuse me, number could change?
It could,
Okay.
yes.
And these, the 6 certified teachers FTE reduction, are those the ones that you were speaking about earlier that like retired or resigned and it's determined that you're not going to replace them? Is that where
Right.
this sits?
Yes, so what we do, we project the enrollment by school, and then we plug in the prototypical model that comes out of OSPI for funding. And we have been overstaffed. We haven't aligned it, and we aligned it this year. So you take your projected students and give them the number of FTE you need for cert staff, and that's how that reduction came about. And they were people that were either retired or resigned is how they made those reductions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just thank you very much for all of the budget reports. It was really interesting to look through all of those. I think that one of the things in the 9 years that I've been on this board that I find always interesting is that the state's prototypical model that we get funded for is never enough money for the positions that we need in our school district to have a real ideal environment. So we're always looking at limited resources and limited funds. And now we're seeing these ESSER dollars, which I believe was around $8 or $9 million, that is going away. And, I am thankful that we've managed to maintain where we have, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness in looking at the positions, maybe where people have retired. I'm guessing that there's probably still a need for positions, and I do hope that if we do get those enrollment numbers and they come in, obviously we'll have the building principals and leads start to filter up what those needs may or may not be, but we have to deal with the resources that we have and use those wisely. So I do appreciate all of the challenges that we're looking at and where we're at, especially considering some of the bigger drops with school districts that I know are really suffering with some of the cuts that they're having to make that are very substantial at this time.
Yeah, and I just think it's really key to illustrate, as part of some of the questions and comments, is that we still have a low general fund balance. That, when, again, it was 88.8% of your previous, that number's projected for next year's staffing, but when we're 88.8% of your budget now, we have to make staffing reductions in FTE not a forced one, but we do have to borrow, as you can see from different departments, so that we can balance that budget, so that we have a better general fund balance. If we don't have a rainy day fund, then you get in situations where other districts didn't plan ahead, didn't have additional dollars to fund things that they need to do, and then that's where the squeeze play happens, where surprises happen, and we're trying to avoid that situation as much as possible.
Your comment about the state not funding, one place where it is, which our classified staff is huge in this district. We have parapros, we have food service people, we have maintenance, custodian. They only fund 60 FTE for those staff. Our maintenance custodial department alone is 43.5. So it really doesn't leave us much. So we have to find other ways to fund the rest of our classified staff.
I would just like to say that, given that the constraints of state and federal dollars, contracts, everything else that you have to work within the box, and you're still able to do this with local taxes being less than 9% of the total budget. I appreciate the hard work, and good job. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, the consent agenda. Has everybody had an opportunity to take a look at that?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to number 7, discussion and action items, 7.01, proposed revised policy number 4330, use of school facilities. Robert Herron. This will be the first reading.
Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair and our esteemed directors, thank you so much for this evening, for letting me to come forward. We are bringing you to you for your consideration, and this is the first reading for policy 4330, which has not been touched, if the dates are correct, in 20 years. And so the policy is pretty outdated, as well as the procedures have been updated more recently, but still not meeting our current needs and things that are going on. So we convened a committee in April, and we met through June, into the middle of June, which was made up of community members and facility users in our athletics department as well, and the city, who is our biggest user of facilities. The Parks and Rec Director, Jordan Crumples, was also on the committee. And we met and we sat down and went through WASDA recommended revisions, which is what is largely was in the policy, which brings, we reorganize things for a better readability and to bring some of the important points forward, as well as to update WASDA definitions for, for discrimination and making sure that we're bringing our policy into a more inclusive, modern environment. And so those recommendations are in there from the committee, as well as the procedures, which largely address things that were outdated and clarifications that were needed. The committee took a stance of trying to keep things simple and not getting into the weeds, and just really trying to focus on things that needed to be focused on and so forth. So we changed some of the room definitions because some of the facilities have changed in the years that have passed. Also, just trying to make some clarifications on things that were issues sometimes with our reservation holders that were either confusing or needing to be cleaned up. And so with that, I stand for any questions.
So would you be the right one to ask about the pool? Is it managed by the YMCA?
Yeah, it's not something I could speak to because it's not in my purview. I don't manage the contract specifically. I think it's the business office that handles I believe it's the business office that handles the contract for the YMCA and the pool.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, sorry. Yep.
I'll answer that. I don't have the whole agreement in my head, but we do have an agreement with the YMCA. It's been in place, I think, it was before Wyatt came, so probably 4 or 5 years ago. We are going to review it this year, just because I've been hearing some things from the community too, like you heard today. So we will be reviewing it. I'm not sure what will happen with it, but they are managing the pool. They have staff there, and they pay their staff. We don't pay their staff, so.
Do you know why it was turned over to them to begin with? Was it a,
Yes, they came to the district and negotiated an agreement with the superintendent at that time and the athletic director at that time. We thought it would be a good community partnership. There's a few things that need to be fine-tuned. I think we can still have them there, but just a few fine-tuned things.
Thank you, Brenda.
A part of that too, though, was the management of just the chemicals in the pool and not having because we lost a really great employee at the high school who
Yes.
managed the pool.
Yes.
And it was, with the YMCA having a pool, they could have one person that did both. And so there was a partnership that was born out of that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what the full agreement and
Yeah.
would be, yeah.
And the district, I can tell you in that agreement, we do have first dibs if we want to use that pool. It's our pool first, so our schedule comes first. We put together our swimming lesson schedule that they do at the high school for those training the lifeguards, that type of thing. We put all that together first and give it to the Y, so the district does come first in that agreement.
Are there any other questions? I don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you.
7.02, be a proposed revised policy number 6022, the minimum fund balance, with Brenda Trogstad.
Good evening again. Superintendent Jesse and I have spoke to you several times about this fund balance policy. Back in 2018, it was revised to be a 9% goal under fund balance, and you saw on my fund balance charts, we were at 10% that year, so it was easy to make that change. But this past year, when we were audited, we got an audit finding because we weren't close to that 9%. So the state auditor did recommend that we change it and reduce it down. We have done some calculations. The recommendation is to move it to 4% right now. We'll be a little bit under it this year, probably at year-end close. I'm hoping we can hit it, actually. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But, and then next year, we're projecting we'll be above it, so we won't have an audit finding. With that, they'll see we're making the attempt. So I would like to recommend that this be approved tonight at the 4% of current expenditures for the fund balance.
And this gets us more in line with most of the other schools in the area.
Yes.
Current funding and keeps us out of trouble with the state auditor, correct?
Yes, it used to be that if you put the word goal in here like we have, they wouldn't give you an audit finding. That has gone away. So now if you just don't meet your percentage, they give you an automatic audit finding, so.
Okay, thank you. We've talked about it a bunch of times. I don't have any questions. Does anybody else? I'd take a motion.
A motion to approve proposed revised policy number 6022, minimum fund balance.
I second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there you
Thank
go.
you.
Okay, item number 7.03, proposed approval of the superintendent's employment contract for the 2024 through 2027. We will have a short exempt session and then come back and do something. Be probably 10 minutes. Okay, item 7.03, proposed approval of the superintendent's employment contract for 2024 through 2027. Do I have a motion? We can discuss it after we have a second, I promise.
I move that we approve the superintendent's employment contract for 2024-27.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion? With no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 7.03 passes. Item number 8, board member comments. Director Cronquist.
So, to the staff of the Shelton School District, we appreciate all the hard work and we see what you're doing. The budget looks awesome. I know it takes a lot of juggling. That's about it.
Director Gilmore.
Thank you for coming tonight and sharing your comments.
Director Davidson.
Thank you very much for the presentations tonight. Thank you for the public that joined us as well. We really appreciate that. I would like to thank the superintendent for the job that you are doing. I appreciated the report from Brenda and you this evening, looking and reviewing through some of our statistics that we have, where we have had an increase in our third grade literacy rates of 12%. We had a graduation rate this year of 90%. Our budget is looking better than most school districts. Unfortunately, I wish every school district's budgets were looking better because I think public education is very important. So thank you very much, and that's it for my comments this evening.
I would like to echo the thoughts of Director Davison. In addition to, it's going to be really hot for the next couple of days. Stay hydrated, stay safe, enjoy your summer. And do we have a motion for an adjournment?
I move that we adjourn.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.